So we did speak about how to create macro variables. Now let's speak about how to create macro programs. It's not hard actually. The first thing you have to do is you have to write the program. So let's imagine that I would like to see a data set, and I will call it printing data set. For instance, customer underscore dim. So that's what I would like to do. Then I will write the full program, proc print data equals bst405 dot customer underscore dim, and run. And let me just close the title. So let's imagine that this is what I'm trying to do. Let me just run it. And I have here a lot of observations, whatever, but I have this data set printed out, right? I could also actually specify how many observations I'd like to be printed. Let's say obs equals 10, and I will rerun it. I mean, this is like the program that is not new to you in any way, but that's just to give you, to take you, you know, slowly through the steps you have to take in order to write a macro program. So this is just the program, a regular program. But let's imagine that during your, like, actually, and that's what you have to do, right? During your work, you have to write many proc print steps, and you know, doing that is going to be like super long for you, right? You will have to type a lot of things every time you want to print some data set. What if you could write a program that would be much shorter than that and would still do what you wanted it to do, or what you wanted to do? And you can do it. So to write a macro program, you have to follow 2 steps. Step number 1, write a working, that's very important, program. That's number 1. And the second one, create a macro program from it. So you cannot just, you know, create a macro program just, you know, from scratch and stuff. You actually have to make sure that the program you wrote does the job, and this is very important. So let me just copy this one, because right now we are going to create a macro program, but we are going to be using this one. So to start a macro program, that's very surprising, you have to type a %, and then to type macro. Then you have to give it a name. So for example, we'll call it PRNT. And now we need to decide what it is we would like to replace. So what I suggest we replace in this program is this part, the name of the data set, and we will call it set here. Also, we are going to replace, I mean, these are the things you change pretty often, right? So you change if you print, and let's say you're working on proc sort and then data step and then proc print and stuff like that, you know, the names of the data set, you will be changing them pretty often. So that's why we will create a set instead of basically something like a macro command within your macro program. So that will be replaced by the word and set. Also, we can change the number of observations that we want to indicate here. Sometimes we want to print 10, sometimes we want to print a little bit you know, less or more. And what we can also change is this. So these are the things that change. I will call it lib. The things that we usually change when we are writing the macro program that vary are the name of the data set, the lib name maybe, the name of the data set, and how many observations we would like to see printed. But what stays from one program to another program is the title statement, and then you start typing something here. Also, proc print data equals is the same for any program, no matter what you are writing, right? Then you always have run and you always have title. So if this is exactly the program you are going to be using over and over again, it makes sense for you to create a macro program and you will see how easy it is to call it and actually how nice it works, and you will only need one line of code to actually refer to that macro program and perform the operation that is repetitive from one, maybe from the beginning of the program, and then you repeat it in the middle many times, and then until the end. So we are going to replace this, and this. We're going to substitute customer dim for the set, BSA for 5 for the lib, and this for the ops. So let's go. Customer dim, we call it set here, so we'll say and set. We also have it here, so we'll also specify it here. Now the library statement is going to be and lib. So if you just leave it like this, and lib dot, that dot is going to be referred, it's going to be like consumed by the macro variable and lib, or macro call, and it will just disappear pretty much because it becomes a part of the statement. So you have to put another period here to actually have a result as BSTA445 dot, and then the name of the set. And also the number of observations, we are going to change it, so we'll say and ops. So that's pretty much all you need. And we will say macro print lib set ops, for example. Let's actually create n instead of ops, so that we are not confused by what we are doing. So semicolon here. Then you have your program, and you are telling SAS where to include these macro variables that you are creating in the way, like on the way. Remember to put a dot if you want a dot between two macros, or between one macro and something else. And remember to put, and remember also to close it. You will just say mend, and you don't have to say mend PRNT, but some people also say mend PRNT, and it actually works in both ways. We maybe don't even need to say printing dataset. Let's make it more compact. So now we'll run the program. So log, okay, no errors, we'll not know much, but I mean that's fine. There are ways to see what it is you're printing, but what we're gonna do now, we're going to call it. So to call it, you will have to use again %prnt, then you will open brackets, and you have to specify the parameters. You have here 3 parameters, you have to specify each of them. And you see how SAS is actually asking me to specify the 3 of them, right? So the first one will be BSTA445, comma. The next one will be customer underscore dim, comma. And then let's say 10. You do not put a semicolon at the end of a macro when you're calling it, or a macro program, when you're calling it, because you have all of your semicolons here. So you don't want it to unpack and then add another semicolon at the end. So that's why you do not use any semicolon here. And also think of a macro as, as something like a package in which you can find smaller packages, something like the library name, and the package of a dataset name, and the package of how many observations you want to see printed. So let's see how it works. Let's just run it, and our tiny program worked and printed this data set for us, and also it printed only 10 observations as we asked. So let's play with it, let's continue playing with it, and let's print some other file. So let's print a file called client purchases, PRNT, again BSTA445, comma, client underscore purchases, and 15, for instance. And again, no semicolons, just remember this. Usually you have to use them, but not here, because you already used them. You already included the full program into your macro program statement that you wrote before. So let me just do it this way. So you see now we have 15 observations printed, printing client purchases, and we have here all the data we need, you know, purchase, gender, payment, item, cat code, store, and so on. So this is how it works. Also, let's now create a variable. We will call it var1. So %let. So you can. This is the idea, actually, to show you that we can combine a macro statement, a macro program, and macro variables, and you're going to see how it works. So var1, gender, payment, and store, and that's it. No run after that. And what we are going to see here, if we would like actually to get a procfrag table with gender, payment, and store, and actually not maybe just for this data set, but maybe for some other data sets, we would like to run a procfrag and to check, you know, the descriptive statistics that we can check. So I ran the macro variable so that SAS remembers it. The macro variable is called var1, and remember, this is just a variable, it's not a program at all. If I run, and I cannot run %var1 and specify something there, right? I have to actually include it somewhere so that it unpacks to gender, payment, and store. And I can do it anywhere. I can do it in the proc print statement or wherever, but yeah, I have to do it this way. So let's do it and let's see. Let's call it title showing frequencies of and var1, and then procfrag data equals BSCA 445. So remember that I told you we have to make sure that the program actually works before we create a macro variable from a macro program from it. Client purchases and tables, and var1 run. Let's close the title. So this is what we created. I can actually, maybe I should add also here the comment printing the customer a BSCA 445. Let me be like here, you know, a BSCA 445 customer underscore dim data set. Maybe printing 10 observations from BSCA 445 data set. Okay. So that gives you an idea of what it is we are doing. Here you know that we are creating a macro variable. So let's see what happens when we run this one. Okay, so as expected, and we did it before, it happened to us before, we have 3 tables. One for gender, one for payment, one for store. We know that there are 3 stores in the company, and most of the stores are in Toronto, then Montreal, and then Vancouver, and most of the purchases paid for by cash, and in the database we have 65% of males. So this is what our procfrag procedure shows to us. Now let's imagine that we have to run this program pretty often throughout our day or something like that, throughout our analysis when we are on a case. So we could save us a lot of time if we actually created a macro program of the procfrag procedure. So let's do it, and let's create a macro from it now. So again, I'm gonna copy it. So creating a procfrag macro, and let's go for it. If you remember, we should create something that we call macro, and then we need to give it a name. So let's give it a name, FRQ, for example. And again, we're going to substitute the library statement, the library name, lib. We're going to sub also the dataset name, and will be set. And also, I think we are going to actually, yeah, we're going to stop there. But we could also, I will show you two ways, okay? So one of them is like this, and if we keep just it as at end var1, that's also gonna be fine. So we'll stop here because we're just subbing these two things. So these are the only things we'll have to indicate, okay? So showing frequencies of var, that's fine. And maybe let's call them lib1 and set1, so that you know we are not confused with what it is we did before. So we have new variables created. So now let's run this program. Oh yeah, I'm running this bit a little bit too late, a little bit too early. So here we have to say lib, and here we have to say and set1, or lib1 actually, lib1 and set1. Okay, so now we have it all, it seems to me, and now let's run it. Okay, so no errors, that's perfect. Some nodes, yeah, it's okay. So now we are ready to do it. So let's call that variable. Let's use %frq, and brackets we will say something like bst45 for the library, and we will also say client underscore purchases, and that's it. Remember, no semicolon at the end. Let's run. Perfect. So now you can see that we have the same result as before, the same three tables with the same data. And we combined a macro program, and we also included there our and var1 portion. So what we could also do, we could actually make it a little bit different. So let me just copy this, and it will be something like creating a proc frac macro, and we will keep lib. Okay, let me just create two new macros, doesn't matter, lib2 set1 or set2, and frequencies, and we will call it a variable, but it will be also here, right? So we'll include here a variable, and we'll call it variable, so it will be and variable, and here and variable. So now we have actually a chance to substitute that variable, you know, with some other name that we would like to use. We are not just reliant only on and var1. So here we will keep again our bst45 client purchases, but now we have to add the and variable thing, right? So here we can add just and var1. Let's see how it works. Again, just to show that you can use the macro variable that you created at any step of the macro program. Let me see. Yes, again, the same data, the same output, which is great, right? So now we know how to get that information, and you can, to change the output, what you can do, you can rewrite this thing here. So for example, if I just change, if I delete store, and if I rewrite it, run it again, I can come back here. I don't have to overwrite that program, and now I have only two tables as my output. So whatever I do there to that and var1 portion is gonna have an impact on the further output. This is nice because sometimes, imagine if you have a few programs that rely exactly on this var1 thing, so you only have to change it once, and it will save you not just a lot of time, but it will also save you from mistakes, because sometimes, you know, you want to replace it in many places, but you can only replace it if you replace it in only one, then you don't have to track that variable throughout all the data set. You know what I mean? So this is something that can help you make your programs more accurate. Okay, so we tried that. We can also try to do something with another data set, BSTA45, comma, employee payroll, and marital status. So marital status will be our variable that is not a macro variable. This is just a regular variable. And we only have one table, and we have married, single, other. So we have 50% of married people in the organization, and about 40% single, and other, we don't know what happened to them, so, or maybe they didn't say, you know, they didn't give us their status. Okay, so you can also use macro variables in other ways, and let me show it to you. So let's imagine we would like to subset our data set, which is called order facts. So if you remember, some time ago we wrote this program, parent T, BSTA, this one, where we can change the library, the set, and how many observations we want to have printed. So let me do it this way. Let me just call that macro. So you see, this is where I have to refer to that macro program again, but I'm gonna print a different data set. So it will be order underscore fact. And I would like to print 10 observations. So this is my data set that I'm gonna work with. Order fact, it has different IDs, and also how much was bought, what product was bought, and the price, and if some discount was provided or not. So this is just to give you an idea. So now let's imagine that we would like not to print all years, but we would actually just like to focus only on 2 years from this data set. Let me show it to you. We would like to focus on only 2006 or 2007, and that's all we need. So let me just you know, we cannot use the same program that we created before, because now we need also to sub other variables, and we only can sub here other parts of the program, right? And here we can only sub the library name statement, library name, and also the file name, and how many observations we would like to see in our data set. So we are going to create a program where year equals 2006, year 1 equals 2007, and var2, or var3 in our case, I guess. Is it var3 or var2? var2, yeah, okay. And var2 equals customer ID, let me just do it here. var2 equals customer underscore ID, order underscore type, quantity, total underscore retail price. And we're going to sub it all using the where statement, and we'll do it just in a proc print step. You can of course also use it for other steps as well. So let's create a few macro variables first. %lat year equals 2006 semicolon. %lat year 1 equals 2007 semicolon, and %var2 equals, and I will just copy all of this, you know, because there's a lot of typing here. So %lat var2 equals customer ID, order type, quantity, total retail price. So let me run these macro variables. Okay, let me check the log. Okay, no errors. We are not going to go any further. That's fine. So now we are ready to continue, and let's just write a program that is not a macro program yet. Let's go. So title, customer orders of and year or and year 1. So that's your title. And remember, if you want SAS to unpack this macro, you have to use double quotation marks. Sometimes you want to use the and symbol as a part of your title. So in that case, you have to use single quotation marks, because if you use that sign and that symbol, SAS will think that this is a macro call, that you're calling for a macro, and that's not exactly what you're doing, you know. It can be, for example, title 1. It can be, for instance, I can say orders of year 1 or year 2 and other variables, for example. So if I do not use the single quotation marks, this and SAS will try to interpret it as a macro variable, and we will run into an error. Okay, so the next one, proc print data equals BSTA 445 dot order underscore fact where year. So I'm applying this year function on the date of the order. Year or the date is equal to end year, or again year order underscore date is equal to and year 1. And now we have this var. Come on, we have var. Okay, it's here. Var and var 2 run title. Okay, so that's what we have, and that's our output. We have this output: customer ID, order type, quantity, total retail price. And here, I wonder why we do not have. Oh, okay, sorry. I had to use here title 2. That's me. I basically just overrode the title, and now that's correct. Sorry about that. Okay, so now you see, now we have this and sign here. Let's see what happens if I use double quotation marks. Because programming, if you're learning programming, you have to experiment and you have to make errors. You have to run into errors. And let's see what happens if we do it. So let me just actually show you what happens if you do it this way. F3. So let's check out our log. It has a warning. Apparent symbol, symbolic reference, other not resolved. So this reference, and other, SAS thinks it must be a macro variable. What about what will happen if we do it this way? Is it the same thing? Are we gonna have the same results? No. So only if it's attached to something, but sometimes it's like, you know, let's say you're writing and M's, right? So in that case, definitely SAS will think, oh, okay, so there is like a macro variable or something. So to be on the safe side, if it's not a macro variable, include it into single quotation marks. If it is, include it in double quotation marks so that SAS could actually see it and read it. I think it can help you doing it this way. So we can actually write a program now, another print program. So let's create another macro, parent2, let's say 1, and again we'll have our lib, I think lib3 already. Is it lib3? I just don't want to overwrite what we created before, so lib3, set3, and then we will also have like all those little things over there. So that's pretty much all we'll have to do. And now we'll just include this program over here, and we'll sub some stuff there. So remember also to finish it with a mend. So it's like a sandwich between percent macro, the name of the macro, different statements you would like to replace, and also percent mend at the end. So title, customer orders of here and here, we have those macro variables. Here we don't have any macro. Here we have to have unlib, and remember to include unlib3, yeah, and remember also to include another period here, and set3. So that's pretty much all we need to do, and that's it. So if I run this program, I should have no result yet, because it's not a program, it's just a macro program, but I see no errors, no warnings. That's a good sign. And now let me just run that %parent1 with BST845, comma, and our dataset name is order fact. Again, no semicolon in the end. Let's just run it and let's see if it worked or not. Oh, sorry. Yes, it did. So this is our data set, which is perfect, and it's only subbed by the year. If we would like to include that part into our data set, so we could actually keep that part as well. So we could add it here, order type, and we also have order date, right? So we could keep it here before quantity, order underscore date. And let's just rerun this one. And now let's go back and let's rerun our macro variable here. Control fan F3. So we should see that variable. Order date, yes, and we can check now that it's all of these orders come from either 2006 or 2007. Okay, so this is pretty good, and we're going to create the last program with the proc means. So let's imagine that we have this data set where we would like to create a proc mean where we will see the data summarized, or where we'll see the mean found for a few of our variables, and I will show you which ones. So we have these variables that we would like to use here. Let me just write it in the program so that we had our task, right? So proc means we have to do the means with these parameters. Okay, so order underscore fact, order underscore date, order underscore type, and total underscore retail price. So we want to have these, and our class will be, for instance, let me just find it. Okay, so the class will be order type, and we would like to have the cost price per unit. So total retail price is not actually cost price per unit, but okay, so we are also going to include that in our statement. Cost price, we'll just move it, per unit. So the next thing, we're also going to subset it. So subset proc means statement by a specific year. So let's run the proc mean statement. Data equals BST845 dot and we're going to use the file that is called order fact, order underscore fact, where, because you can use the where statement in proc means, year from order underscore date equals some specific year. In our case will be 2006, for example, class it will be order type, order underscore type, and var, and we are going actually just to use for now cost price per unit, cost price underscore per unit. So we want to find the minimum, or the mean, sorry, the mean cost per unit. So we'll have to say run. We could also add title, and we'll say something like, what can we say in this title? Mean of cost price per unit. And let's close the title, and we could also ask for just specific statistics, so mean, maybe mean, and max. So we'll just have 3 elements shown to us, and this is our program. Let's run it and let's see what we have. Okay, so here we have our mean for the type 1, or the type 2, or the type 3, but you should also remember that it's been subset for our year. So what we have to do now, we actually will have to create a program where we will specify some of these parameters. So we have to replace some of these parameters from the model, just for SAS, you know, to create an automatic model. So let's go and let's do it. So percent macro and then min, for instance. At first, let's specify the set. Okay, the set is here. It will be and set, and here we'll say, okay, we need set. We may also need a library, so let's say and lib. Remember 2 dots, so here we'll go with a lib, right? Okay, so also we could actually specify the year, but the year we could also, because we're only using 1, so let's do it this way. So let, percent let year, let's do it yr equals, in our case, 2006. We have to run it, so that gets saved. And here we have to specify and yr. Okay, so now we did that, and we can see that order date is always going to be the same, but for example, class can change, and also cost price per unit can also change. So we can say VR1 and VR2, and here it will be VR, oh, we can actually call it class, for example, class, and class. And here we can call it and VR2, whatever, also here, and VR2. So what else can we specify here? I think that's it. So now we have it all, and let's go. So macro, its name, what we want to subset here, the library, VR2, okay, year, class, that's it. We could also specify these parameters, and let's do it. Let's say stat, and here we will say and stat, and stat. Okay, so now it seems that we are almost all set. We have to finish our sandwich, and let's rerun it all, including the let yr, okay, and that's it. So we ran our macro program. Now let's check if it works or not, right? So just close this. Okay, perfect. All we have to do is to use the %, mn, and now let's go bstf5, comma. Now our data set was called order underscore fact, comma. So the next one, we are looking for the order type, order underscore type, and then we have our cost price per underscore unit, and now we will have our stat, min, and max, and no semicolon. So let's run it. So that's what you have. again we have the same thing, right? The order type, and we have here the information, mean of cost price per unit, and we have some other information as well. So the other thing we could do, we could actually write here cost price per unit with a capital, so that in our title it appears with the capital letter. Now you can see that it's shown as a cost price per unit. Because SAS is case insensitive, so we can actually afford to do that. You cannot do it in R, you know, for example. It's not possible, but in SAS it's possible, so you can do it easily. And this is our proc means. So maybe you can also have a question like, what happens if we do not include one of the parameters? Let me show you what happens. So if you do not include the last parameter, like you see here, then that's what you have, right? So you actually just have all the regular stats, not anything specified. So let's imagine that we remove this one. So let's see what happens. You have an error, and let's see why. So now you created a blank. Let me just show it to you. You created a blank before order fact. So first of all, it's not possible for SAS to read anything. And so you can see actually that it's not possible. Then the whole program doesn't work, and it's not possible to do anything about it. Even if you delete this comma, you do not have an essential piece of your data, right? So that's you have to specify it. I mean, you know, when I deleted what I deleted, it didn't have a specific, like a huge effect on anything here. So imagine that we create another variable and will be called VR3. And we can specify it here, VR3, so that we have some non-essential piece of information. So what's gonna happen if we exclude this one? Wait a second. Min. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So you can see that nothing changed, because we didn't include the VR3 variable. So if something is not essential, you don't have to include it. And if something is essential, definitely have to look for it. But remember to use commas to specify that you removed something, because if I don't, now it won't be able, like everything will shift, and now you have an error. If you use a comma to say, okay, there had to be something, but now it's not there, that's fine, you see? So you're totally fine with that. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea of how macros work, how macro programs work. And we could create another one, for example, but I guess it can actually be enough for now. So you tried to create a macro program with the proc means, with the proc frac, with proc print, and you can definitely go for data step. You can go for any step that you want to do, and just, you know, see what it is that you have to change frequently, and you know, just rewrite that program as a macro to save yourself some time, and also, you know, to increase accuracy of your programming. That's it for now.